Welcome, another episode of the Growth League podcast. I'm with my guest, Dan Smith. He's the Director of Brand Marketing and Creative at Direct Energy Canada. Welcome to the show, Dan. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Caleb. Looking forward to it.
So I got to ask, on our first chat, you had been complaining to me about, I think you fell and hurt your back. Like, how's everything from a health standpoint?
The back's doing all right. You can't tell on Zoom, but I'm a pretty tall guy, so I was actually not using proper lifting technique.
Yeah.
I was committing to some new exercise routines, and I'd actually purchased some flooring. And in lifting that flooring, I heard a little pop in the back there. So,
Yeah.
you know, spend some good amount of time with my physiotherapist. And getting old, right? That's just
That's what it
part of life,
is. I put my back out picking up my kids these days. So it's
right?
when your mind tells you that you're a young strapping 25-year-old and your body reminds you quickly that you're not. I hear you.
That's right. Yeah, when I open the fridge, I have to think the same thing. It's like
That's
I
right.
can't
Yeah.
eat like I used to. Yeah,
See, I don't have that will. So I think a coach of mine told me that, willpower is never something you rely on. It's always planning. So,
that's
it starts at the actual grocery shop, in terms of protecting against that. I digress.
exactly.
Dan, for those of our listeners that maybe haven't met you or heard from you before, can you give us a little bit of a summary of your journey, as kind of where it started and how you got to where you are from a marketing leadership standpoint?
For sure. I guess from a marketing perspective, my journey isn't that conventional. I went to university in Ottawa, the University of Ottawa, GG's,
Yeah.
and a friend of mine and I, after we both graduated, were like, how far away can we get from Ottawa? How far away can we get from Ontario and not have to get a visa? So we up and just moved to Vancouver, thinking, West Coast lifestyle, lots of jobs, things like that. And I found out very quickly it was very hard to get a job in marketing.
Yeah.
So having a business commerce degree with a specialization in marketing didn't really translate into getting into an agency or an in-house marketing job. So I actually started my career as a recruiter in the HR field and recruited many years ago fuel cell engineers, like hydrogen fuel cell engineers, when it was just kind of a budding industry in the Vancouver area. And so did that for a number of years, eventually moved to Alberta, started my family here, live in the Calgary area now, and moved to another company, ATB Financial. Very proud to be a former ATB Financial employee. Where I also continued recruiting there and had an awesome experience doing that. They gave me a lot of new responsibilities, and eventually I was hiring C-suite level folks at the company. I created websites back in the day for specific roles. So I was hiring a chief people officer, and I created a website that was called elevatehr.com. And that was a way that we got people kind of interested in showing, like, especially in HR, like, you need to be able to show the values of your company and really attract the right candidates. And I was proud to say that we did. And as I started to do more things like that, I was testing like video interviews also, which at the time was, it seems normal now, but
Yeah.
at the time was, a little dicey, but we did that. And then was able to kind of translate that into a brand marketing position at ATB, because they saw, this guy's really good at promoting the company
Yeah.
to potential employees. Let's see how he can do with customers and prospects. So was able to kind of launch my career in marketing that way. And throughout my time at ATB, just moved through progressive roles. One of the things I was really proud of was introducing the concept of content marketing to ATB. Banking is not something that people think about a lot,
Yeah.
and are often confused by investing and saving and all the different things that need to be done in the banking world. And I was able to start up a brand new content marketing team at ATB, to the point where we actually won a content marketing award from the Content Marketing Institute worldwide award. We're really proud to
Yeah.
do
Well,
that
I,
as a
I
team.
I was going to say,
Yeah,
I mean, for when you look at ATB today, and even over the last several years, handful of years, content marketing is a very obvious sort of pillar of their strategy. So it sounds like you sort of kind of broke ice on this new mindset for the company.
Yeah, and it actually took me kind of standing up on a stage in front of 100 of my peers, explaining why, uh, why this was important, and the metrics that were going to be involved in that. And over the years, we tripled the organic search to the website just because we were simply answering people's questions,
Yeah,
right? And really focusing on those keywords and delivering great video content, blog content, micro content through all the channels, and then eventually it turned into gating content
right.
where we could capture email addresses and then put people into like a nurture flow. And I tell you, the data we saw, like in our HubSpot account, someone go from reading a piece of content through a Google ad, through giving us an email address to book an appointment with a mortgage advisor. We were like,
That's it.
we were popping champagne. That was a party. When you could see that full marketing funnel in action was
That's
really exciting.
awesome. So bring us back to that. Like there must have been a triggering event for you, or maybe a light bulb moment that prompted you to say, okay, I'm going to go through the effort and the maybe pain to start to convince a group of people that hadn't thought about this before. Like what prompted you to get on the stage and make this business case?
Yeah, it's really just kind of about human connection, and that's something that I really learned in my career as a recruiter and just talking to so many people is like people don't want to be talked to, they want to be talked with, right?
Right.
And so when people have questions, they would like answers. They just don't want to be preached at and told you should do this, you should do that. And I think content marketing is a great way to engage in that in a safe way, a two-way conversation because you're understanding what the customer's needs are
Yeah.
and then answering the questions that they have. So I kind of presented it in that way and was able to build up, at one point just from myself doing content marketing to about a team of 8,
That's
covering
awesome.
all the different aspects of the business and creating lots of really amazing content.
So for others that are playing the lead from a content and storytelling standpoint, what would you share in terms of establishing a good working dynamic between sort of the performance marketer side of it and the brand and storytelling? And do you have an approach that has worked in terms of bringing those two sides to the table?
Mm-hmm. Well, technology and data certainly help a lot, right? So
Right.
that's something we're working on right now, and I've got a content marketer on my team who's just she's fantastic. We really kind of need to pull the data out and show like people are asking questions, right? Utilities now. I kind of joke I went from one industry people love to
Yeah.
hate to another,
Yeah.
right? But I'm kind of getting used to it. It's interesting just how much people don't understand, right? And as you educate them more, in our case, the more content we can put out and the more understanding people have about how the utilities industry works in Alberta, that creates less of a pressure on our customer care center, right?
Right.
Where people are phoning in and saying, hey, can you explain these charges on my bill? Well, we've got videos for that. We've got blogs for that. We've got micro content on social media for that. So when you can like quantify, reduction in customer complaints, a reduction in, time on the phone, explaining things to people that, there's nothing actually really, well, some might argue there's something wrong with the system, but there's,
Yeah. Yeah.
nothing actually wrong with their bill. It's just that, they don't fully understand because there's so many charges and it is confusing, right? So we want to kind of dedupe a lot of that for people and it has real business impacts down the road. So that's just one example. With smarter systems like marketing automation, you can obviously see the digital journey of a customer and then use marketing attribution to give a view to your stakeholders and other folks in the business as
Right.
to the success of the content you're posting.
I would assume, just based on some of my experience, that there's a whole chunk of sort of brand and content marketers that are purists around the creative and around but I think in some cases make that mental and literal leap into the connection point from an attribution standpoint or a business case. Like, how critical is that for you in your mind, not to be like the purest artist, but also to tap in that other side of the brain?
Yeah, for sure. It's an ongoing conversation, right? And folks that haven't spent, 15, 20 years in marketing, but have spent 20, 30 years in business,
Right.
have had many different experiences with marketers, right? And an approach we're trying to take right now is with direct energy is really kind of showing the personality of our company through through our creative and through our like mass media advertising.
Yeah.
But then as you start to get deeper and you want to really know more, that's when we're really using that content and education
Right.
to show you like we're here, we're experts, we understand this stuff, and we have empathy. We understand that utilities are expensive, right? And we want to have a conversation, right? If people are struggling with paying their bills, we want to have a conversation. We want to invite that discussion, right?
Yeah, and especially they're expensive, but they're also basically mandatory, and there's freedom of choice. Like
That's right.
um, I've seen some content from you guys that are actually leaning into this idea that you have choice. Like we're not trying to pretend we're the only ones, which is it is empathetic, right? And I love
That's
that.
right.
Tell me a little bit about your team. So the direct team that you kind of work with on a day in day out basis. Who's involved? How many people? What roles? Tell me about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of the reasons why I came to Direct Energy in the first place was the opportunity to build a team essentially from scratch, which I think is a pretty unique opportunity to come to a relatively big company with resources, with FTE, and be able to build something from nothing.
Yeah.
And that was a really fantastic thing. So was able to kind of start out and within a few months just understand kind of what the company needed in terms of marketing skill sets, and then design kind of an organizational structure, which is something I'd done previously in HR, which was helpful,
Yeah.
and write a whole bunch of job descriptions and just kind of get it out into the universe and start interviewing. So on my team, I would say given the size of the company, it's fairly lean still. But I've got a team that's focused on brand marketing and acquisition. So they manage kind of all the activities from brand right through to performance marketing and just
Yeah.
kind of acquiring that customer. I've got a couple of folks who are focused on retention marketing and supporting customer communications through email. I've got a manager of digital operations and analytics, and another kind of project manager that supports that as well, because we've got so
Yeah.
much work that comes from across the company that all has to flow through our team. I've got a design creative lead and also a web team, as well as my content marketing manager. So,
Um,
I feel really lucky to have,
Sounds
such
pretty sweet.
fantastic people, and try to kind of hit all the skill sets and have a group of specialists that are super engaged in all the different things that they do.
Yeah. What a unique opportunity. I'm curious about, if you were to go back and sort of, or maybe a word of advice to others that have this unique opportunity of building from scratch. Like you have a blank sheet, a blank white paper. Can you recall like what was your initial thought process, or how do you start to fast forward to today, where what you described is like an A team? It sounds like.
Yeah.
How do you start? Like, bring us into that mindset.
Yeah, so I guess starting with the folks who are already there, right? Like
Right.
the folks who've been at Direct Energy and serving this market for 20 plus years, right? Like understanding what kind of culture is this, what kind of expectations exist, because you need to, especially with my leader, Tance Kozak out of Edmonton, fantastic leader, has been supporting this market for a long time. What's her vision? What does she need to see from a new marketing team? Obviously, she's decided to make some strategic investments to have this team created in the first place to hire me,
Yeah.
right? So understanding and honoring what they have to say, but also they gave me a lot of respect as well and a lot of latitude to come in just with an open mind and say, maybe this doesn't line up, or we need to do some different things with our brand to kind of understand exactly how we're going to meet the customer's needs. So I spent a lot of time, and we spent a lot of time listening to customer calls, understanding their pain points, and understanding, what can the marketing team provide to help alleviate some of those pain points that people have. So that was really kind of where it started, and then you get down to kind of like the functional skills that you need
Yeah.
to kind of operate, right?
So yeah, imagine you go through that and learn what exists today and sort of the tribal knowledge that's there. But now it's to the point where kind of like fantasy football, you're drafting a team. Like, do you
That's
start
right.
do you start with a wide receiver, a running back? Like, what was it for you and why?
Yeah, so actually started with one of the most junior roles per se on my team. Really wanted to find someone who was keen and ready to take on like a lot of different things. In some ways, I kind of saw that in myself when I first started moving into marketing. I was just like
Right.
kind of a one-stop shop, doing a whole bunch of different things. So, having someone who's just willing to come in and honestly like help me with things like invoices and contracts and purchase orders and all those type of administrative things that I was getting wrapped up in, which was pulling me away from kind of
Yeah.
strategy and building the team and those type of things. So we've been since able to kind of really beef him up, and he's our videographer and does a whole bunch of other
Right.
great content as well. That's really where I started, and that's maybe unique because I didn't start with the most senior roles necessarily. I started with
Yeah,
one
that's
of the more junior entry level roles on my team. But from there, just it was kind of identifying these positions that I needed, and I posted a lot at once, and just kind of put it out in the typical um, job search websites. A few folks kind of came to me through referrals through my network, which is really important because I think if you know good people, they're going to refer good people to you because they know you and they know who would be a good fit with you. So a few members of my team as well came through referrals as well.
for a lot of marketing leaders, they may not have very much or any experience in being a hiring manager, but you have this
Right.
unique superpower from your previous parts of your career. Like, what advantage did that give you in terms of finding the right people at the right time and setting them up for success? How did you blend those two worlds together?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sure Gary Vaynerchuk talked about this many years before, but it's always been my philosophy to hire like it's okay. It's better to hire an A personality with like a B or C level skill set than it is to hire someone with an A level skill set and a C personality, right?
Yeah,
So, when I was hiring this team, I kind of said a few things to them like, listen, you're joining a team here. You know, if ever there's kind of drama or conflict or anything like that, I want to root it out immediately. And that's going to be part of this team's culture, right? Is we're going to be open with each other. We're going to live our brand value, which is being direct.
yeah,
And just understand that these are problems we solve together, right? And just because people have differences of opinion doesn't mean someone's better than another person.
yeah,
So these were things that I talked about a lot of my interviews, and a previous leader of mine too said something to the effect of, I've got two rules, and the two rules are, don't lie to me and tell me when you screw up,
yeah.
right? And it's like, yeah, I can do that, right? So, I try to lead being very transparent, and I just want to hire good people that I enjoy spending,
Yeah,
8 to 10 hours a day with. And that seems to be a good recipe for success. I definitely recommend folks,
I love it.
give on the skill set. If they've got a great personality, they've got a great work ethic, and they want to win, they want to perform, they're excited about the opportunity. You can give on the skills a
That's
little bit,
awesome.
right?
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in that. First find the who and then fashion the what, right? Now, I'm curious about your approach in like what would you say the main differences are in supporting and growing and empowering a generalist versus a specialist, right? Because as you're building your team, you're going to have a combination of both, and maybe depending on what stage of the hiring journey, you may start in your case with a good personality, good work ethic generalist. But how do
Mhm.
you contribute? Because I think A players want to thrive in a discipline over time. You can
Right.
start as a generalist, but how do you approach that from a leader standpoint?
Yeah, there's another good rule I caught from another leader at ATB, which was like an 85-10-5 rule. So, you got to spend 85% of your time doing your job, right? You should spend 10% of your time getting better at your job and 5% of your time exploring other things, right? And that those other things might be other marketing things or other things within the business to just kind of grow your business knowledge. So I think that's a good rule. I think the reality of that sometimes is really hard to
Yeah,
to do, right? Like you just get so caught up in the work, but it's something I talk about a lot. We've got development plans that are guided by each of my team members. They need to think about what are the things they want to learn throughout the year. Where do they want to grow? What kind of learning development opportunities do they want to engage in? And it's interesting now because they've got a team of folks that are kind of like 2, 3 years in, and some of them are kind of going like, oh,
Yeah.
what's next? So it's even more important that we're talking about how are you going to grow? How are you going to develop? Is it getting deeper in the skill set you're in, or is it kind of looking across a little bit and developing in some new areas?
Yeah. So what happens for you? Maybe it's happened in the past, or thoughts you would have for other leaders, where inevitably at some point A players leave and retention becomes this thing. Like how have you been able to um, smoothen out the peaks and valleys of retention and the discontinuity cost associated?
Mhm. Yeah, I'm given how much I've been involved in HR and seeing
Yeah.
high performers leave and low performers leave and the whole spectrum in between. I'm really kind of work is work.
Yeah.
You work to have a life,
Right.
right? And if the rule I say too is like if you're getting out of bed in the morning, putting your feet on the floor, and just dreading going to work, you need to make a change, right? And
Mhm.
that might be because you're not challenged enough, or you're too challenged, or the environment you're in isn't a good fit. I would rather see people move on from those opportunities and stay
Yeah.
put. It's better for the rest of the team around. Like if someone's coming in and they're not engaged for whatever reason that is,
Yeah.
it's almost better they move on, and then the team can move on as
Right.
well,
Yeah.
right? So, I've had top performers get promoted. I've had yeah, lots of different scenarios. Matt leaves, and I'm really excited for Matt leaves too because it's like you have to start a family and
Yeah.
we'll see when you come back, right? And all those things are life. And I just think that we shouldn't let our work life rule our personal life. And in any case, when
Yeah.
change happens, it's okay.
So
Yeah.
leaning into that, no doubt you've probably spent a lot of time creating an environment conducive to having these types of conversations. Because I wouldn't imagine normally people are going to come to their leader and say, "Here's what's going on with life." And but
Mhm.
how important is that for you to create this platform to have truth
Yeah.
be talked about? You know?
Yeah, it's hard, right? And I can see how it's hard for employees to be very open with their leaders, right? About, how they're feeling. I mean, usually if it's good, it's,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
pretty okay to share that. But if it's not so good, but I had a leader just recently at HTB right before I left, and we were very open with each other, and he knew that I had, you know, career progression aspirations, and I told him about when I was interviewing with Direct Energy, and he was like, here's a cheerleader for me,
Yeah.
right? And so I know, and he kept things confidential when they needed to be confidential, right?
Wow.
So, but he also kind of found that balance with his leadership to, not surprise them. Like he was very careful in terms of how that relationship was managed, and so that was a really great example to me about how I want to be with all of my team members, so that they know that if they come to me, good, bad, ugly, whatever it is, that it's safe, and I'm not going to hold it against them down the road.
Yeah.
If someone wants to grow and the company that I'm working with can't provide them with that opportunity, absolutely, I'm going to help them explore what's going to be happy for them, because at the end of the day, we're all human. We should be kind to each other, and we got to go home and
That's awesome. Isn't it
have a
cool?
life.
Isn't it cool how we show up as a leader in this present moment is influenced so heavily by the mosaic of experiences we've had being
Absolutely.
on the receiving end of leadership. Isn't that
Yep.
fascinating? It seems like you really lean into that to basically say who I am today is going to be a component tree of what I've experienced,
Yeah. Good and bad, right?
good
Because
and
I don't
bad.
want to say like my whole career has been, roses and fairies, because I've
Yeah.
had some super hard moments with some really tough leaders. Like I feel like at one point I lived like the Devil Wears Prada
Oh no,
experience,
that's
and
like the worst.
not at either of the companies I've mentioned today,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
another one, and it's hard, right? And it was actually a company that I ended up resigning from because I had that moment where I was getting up in the morning at like 5:30 in the morning so I can be at the office at 7, kind of burn myself out for 12 hours. And I'm like, this isn't worth it.
Yeah.
Right.
But instead of being
So,
bitter about it, you've extracted the ingredient that you're using in the way you show up.
yeah,
I think that's
exactly.
awesome. Let's shift to a couple functional things here. I'm curious. So when there's a business objective that is defined by the leadership team at any company, but in this case, Direct Energy, how do you go? What's your high level process from being briefed on what the business target and objective is into now let's start getting on the whiteboard and defining how do we support this from a brand and creative and storytelling standpoint? How do you
Yeah.
bridge those two?
Totally. I think in any organization, especially ones that you know kind of work at scale, right? So the B2C businesses, succeed as they get more customers and as they kind of grow that way. There's not necessarily a way we can, unless you're a landlord and you go out and you buy like 25 different houses, right?
Yeah,
Like we're not necessarily gonna be able to, have Caleb buy more gas and electricity
right.
from us. And we do want Caleb to also be responsible with his,
Yeah, yeah.
his usage, so he's not, burning down the planet. But anyway, I think the role of the marketing team is really to understand, what are the overall objectives of the company, and how does that match the consumer mindset, right? How is that possible? What are they thinking right now? We spend a lot of time researching, understanding our customers, listening to our customers, and also looking at competitive forces as well. So, kind of bringing that in again, it's a very kind of price first type of business that we're in right now. So understanding, what's the value that we provide above and beyond just a baseline price, right? And I think Direct Energy has been great in pushing the envelope and trying to innovate and create new things. And some of those things are coming up I can't talk about,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
there's a lot of fun things coming, and we need to set the stage with our brand. We need to set the stage with our customers to understand they're well taken care of, right?
Yeah,
And
that's really
so when it
cool.
comes, yeah, just matching those business objectives to the customer mindset, to the brand, kind of bringing those things all together, I think is a key role for marketing.
It's subtle, but there's a nuance here that I think is worth reiterating. What I see vividly or visually when you explain that is a lot of marketing leaders, I think, would take the business objective, and then when they get on the whiteboard, they would start to draw that linear relationship line between the objectives and the tactics. But what you're describing is you're drawing it like an empathy line between the objectives and the consumer mindset, and then that is informing the tactical. And that,
Yeah, yeah.
it's subtle, but I would assume that it creates way more impact and success because the foundation from which you're building the tactical execution is rooted in something more than just a self-serving business target.
For sure. And I won't sugarcoat the fact too. It is a numbers game, right?
Yep.
So the more you can kind of get your name out there, uh, you know, how often do you buy electricity and natural gas? Like it's not very often, right?
Yeah.
So when you do, we want to be top of mind, and to do that, we have to reach people in a number of different ways, right? So I was just speaking again with one of my colleagues the other day. We were talking about the marketing funnel, right?
Yeah.
And I was just saying, like, as much as we use that to kind of help guide our tactics,
Yeah.
the real customer journey is a rat's nest,
Totally.
right? Like it's all over the place, and people are inundated with so many messages and so many channels. To really get the word out, you have to kind of be everywhere they are, right? But then you need to also understand, who are they, right? Who are these people that you want to reach out to?
That's awesome.
And so there's a whole lot of work that goes in that, and agency partners and
Yeah.
and all those folks. I mean, I just got to say too, like the marketing community in Calgary, I do believe is world class, and there's a lot of great folks, and I've been lucky to be able to have a bunch of them join my team.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're right though. We got to get rid of that funnel thing, don't we? It's a journey, and you talked
that's
about
right.
you're drawn to the challenge. This is a commodity-based, price-sensitive thing. Like how do you create relationship and resonance in that world? And you guys definitely are leading the charge from my perspective on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Couple rapid fire ones.
Sure.
From a marketing leadership standpoint, what would you be willing to accept or claim is your superpower, and what is your area of weakness or your Achilles heel?
Yeah, so I'd like to think that I lead with empathy, right? And so that's empathy for my team, empathy for customers, and just trying to understand where everybody's coming from. And I think that does stem from just literally talking to thousands and thousands and thousands of people
Yeah.
in my life, right? I've just had that opportunity to meet so many folks, and so that's been, uh, I guess for a superpower, that's hopefully what people would say about
Yeah.
me. But in terms of Achilles heel, that's a tough one. There's probably too many to list. But one thing I'm working on myself is just being more bold, right? And I think when you're someone like me, and I don't often like the spotlight
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
like that. I kind of will. I'm probably the person in the room who will sit back, let everybody else talk, and then kind of come in. And I've been challenged to speak my mind more often, right? So
Wow.
that's something that I need to
Well,
work on.
kudos to you for being on the show, right? Like if you don't like
Oh,
this,
one on one. I mean, that's cool. I don't know if people are going to watch it later, but this is easy.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think what you've shared is so valuable for leaders that are at the beginning, middle, or towards the end of their tenure. Being empathetic, not being the smartest guy in the room, not being the loudest person in the room. You have the unique advantage of having a people first HR background. And I think that if you don't have that, I guess the encouragement based on this episode is to lean into your HR team and start to understand the unique nuance around people, like who and then what. So Dan, I really appreciate you kind of lifting up the veil, sharing a little bit about how you're playing this game. Uh, I'd love to be a part of your team the way you describe it. And so I think the teammates
I'll
that you
let you know next time we're hiring.
yeah, that's right. I think the teammates that you have now are probably pretty proud and feel grateful for that. So thanks for
Yeah, I would
sharing.
hope so. Yeah, thank you, Caleb.